Shalom and welcome back to Tov, the Jewish news channel. We have with us today Tal Ornan, who is a veteran of the Israel Military Intelligence Services. And he would like to give his perspective today on what is going to happen now in the situation that has unfolded since the October 7th massacre going forward and the day after. Shalom.
Hello.
So tell us, how do you see the situation as we move ahead?
Well, basically, the situation doesn't look very good. And I usually think about the three different options that we have. None of them is is something we need to write home about, I would say. First of all, we have the war in Gaza, where it's going to take us a long time to uproot the bases of Hamas, the leaders of Hamas, and all those people involved. We see how the IDF is doing a pretty good job there. But there is a lot of, as well, international pressure to stop it or to have some humanitarian ceasefires, etc., etc. The other situation as we face is basically we're getting rockets from all over the place, whether it's from Syria, some skirmishes with the Hezbollah in the north, and got some missiles coming from Yemen, from the Houthis, who are basically a proxy of Iran, just like the Hezbollah and those Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. And this is basically the chess game of Iran. Even if they don't get into a full-out war with us, they would like to keep us busy from all sides. That's basically that ring of fire strategy they had. Only the problem is that the Hamas kind of surprised them by taking the initiative and doing it without basically waiting for a date where they'll do it from both sides. We're pretty lucky they didn't. Because if that would have happened, that basically what Hamas did was the same plan that the Radwan force, the Hezbollah military force, planned for about 20 years, infiltrating the Galilee and basically occupying it all the way almost till Haifa. And luckily, they haven't acted together. So that's another situation that we can face a long period where we're going to get all that skirmishes around the borders, rockets, missiles, etc. The third option is, of course, to take the initiative. Taking the initiative in the north, something that must, I suppose it must happen. We know that the Hezbollah can basically fire some kinds of like 2,000 to 3,000 missiles and rockets a day. It's much tougher firepower that they have than the Hamas used to have. And therefore, if we take the initiative there and basically create a full-out war against the Hezbollah, we're going to suffer much more casualties among civilians, among communities, and whatever. We know that. And that's not a very great option either, though we don't have a choice. Right now, there are about 150,000 Israelis who don't live in their houses, whether in the north or in the south, and we can't let that happen. We have to basically, how would I say it in English? I'm not sure I got the right expression, but burn the conscience of the Middle East. That if you mess with Israel,
sear it into the
get away with
consciousness.
Yes. Exactly, you can't get away with it, and that's what we're doing with Hamas, but we have to do it with the North as well.
So, but Israel has always tried to avoid having a war on more than one front. So that would be a very, very difficult situation. And if Syria joins in, and we have this constant low-grade intensity war going on in Judea and Samaria at the same time. We just today had a very serious terror attack in Gush Etzion.
Well, we have it anyway. That's the point. We have it anyway. We're taking the initiative in Judea and Samaria, whether it's in Jenin almost every night, in Nablus, in Tulkarem, in Kalkilia, we have no choice. And there are basically IDF units who are getting in during the nights and trying to fetch those Hamas militants or terrorists and either jail them, either kill them. We have no choice. We have to do that. then again, there were few of them caught on the border of the Green Line, trying to get in and do some imitation actions, just like the Hamas did in the October 7th. They were just caught before. And that's basically what the IDF is doing on a nightly base, on a daily base. And then again, we got the north. Just this morning, the IDF took the initiative and bombed a few bases of the Hezbollah. And in the morning, I already told my colleagues here at work, we're going to get hit today. We already got hit a bit with some anti-tanks missiles, rockets. And that's going to, I think, unfold during the day. Because
anti-tank missiles, as unpleasant as they are, if there were a buffer zone between Israel and Lebanon, there wouldn't be anti-tank missiles. But the long-range missiles, that's much more frightening for us. Do we know where they are?
I will not be presumptuous to say we know everything, and certainly not me, because I'm not in the system. I'm not working in the army. I don't have any, military career. But basically, I suppose that the intelligence knows most of the bases of where they are, though it's very difficult to uproot it and to bomb it. And we see what happens even in Gaza. Though the IDF is there, boots on the ground, we still get some rockets coming in, much less than we used to about a month ago, about 80% less. But still, you got to be there in order to be able to prevent it and to bomb it and get rid of it. And
you're
especially in Lebanon,
you're saying that we would have to have boots on the ground in Lebanon as well.
I suppose so, yeah. I suppose so. You can't let the Hezbollah go on bugging you, bothering you at the border. Look, just yesterday I saw there was a report about a community called Margaliot, which is right on the fence. And there is a hill in the Lebanese side above them. And they're basically exposed to anything anybody from the other side want to do. So we don't have any choice. They have to get back there and leave there. And what happened in the October 7th, the main thing that happened, that people feel that all this security, I would say, what is the right word, strategy of Israel failed.
In other words,
and as you said, you have to have a buffer zone.
It's not enough to have cybersecurity and electronic fences and all kinds of fancy technology. You need human eyes and human brains and boots on the ground.
Look, I'm coming from UMINT. The unit that I served in was a UMINT military intelligence unit, which basically dealt with people. Okay, it's about 5% from the intelligence you're getting, but it's a very important intelligence you're getting because it's very, very real and in most cases more trustful sometimes than the technology. You can't avoid it. You should have it among other technologies like SIGINT and OSINT and all that. Now, I got the impression that they kind of gave it up in the Gaza border lately.
The humans. It's one they stopped. There are no agents, fewer agents or no agents.
I don't know it for sure. Again, I don't want to be presumptuous, but I do feel that we trusted too much the technology. And even when those simple soldiers, like those soldiers that were right on the border, and they reported that there is some activity, nobody listened to them.
Why is that? I mean, they had
I heard some explanation this morning that somebody...
They saw what was happening. They could see exactly, they saw the training going on that Hamas was carrying out on the other side.
He explained it this morning very well. He said, it said basically that when you gather intelligence, you have different pieces that you have to put together. Now, if you have that theory about what's going to happen and you don't let that piece that interferes with that get in, and you're trying forcefully to fit it in, then you don't see what actually is very clear to those that see just that piece.
So that goes back to the conception. The conception.
Exactly, it happened to us in 73. Those soldiers near the Suez Canal, saw the guns mobilized. They saw the anti-aircraft missiles mobilized. They reported and everything, but up there, nobody listened. Same thing happened here.
So how do we prevent something like that from happening again? If we ever get that far?
I think the lessons were already been learned during the 70s. We should get back and read them again.
So what do you see,
Or
or let's say whatever happens in the Gaza Strip, whether, obviously the IDF is in there. We heard yesterday they've gotten as far as Khan Yunis already. They've started evacuating civilians from Khan Yunis, which means that they're going in. And they're going to take over the whole Gaza Strip. And it will be much more
very
sparsely populated than it was before. But what do you see as the day after? What's going to happen after Israel completes its takeover of the Gaza Strip? What's next?
First of all, talking about Khan Yunis, I served in my unit, and I used to, it was in the 80s, all the Gaza Strip was still in our hands. We were in, and I used to go there quite a lot. So I pretty much know the area. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a long time to uproot all those Hamas terrorists and their bases and their posts in Khan Yunis, in Deir al-Balach, in Rafiq. It's not going to be easy at all. And therefore, we need a long, long, long breath. It's going to take months and months, and maybe even more than that. We may count 2024, maybe even 2025 before we finish the job there. That's one thing. As a day after solution, what I see, and I'm not ashamed or shy saying that, Israel must use this opportunity to change its situation strategically. And what I keep writing on and saying is that we have to keep part of Gaza Strip empty of Palestinians within our hands and annex it. We need to make sure we have that buffer zone. Exactly.
Annex it.
Exactly.
Make it part of Israel.
Yeah. Make it part of Israel. That's the only thing the Middle East or the extreme Islamists understand. You can kill thousands of them, but that doesn't mean anything to them. That's holy. That's becoming a shaheed. You can ruin their real estate. Fine, they'll come and build it up again. The only thing they understand is and comprehend is if they basically lose land.
Okay.
And that's something that has to be done in this situation.
What do we do with the people? I mean, assuming that a lot of people won't be there anymore, a lot of people have left Gaza already, and they won't be allowed back. But what happens to the people who are in Gaza right now?
I'm very careful of saying annex all of it, because we have the Egyptians on the other side. Assisi is in a very sensitive situation. We already had the Muslim Brotherhood taking control of Egypt. We don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen in Jordan either, and therefore we have to be careful in the sense of that we can't kind of expel everybody. The world doesn't like it either. Just yesterday, I heard Christian Amanpour interviewing Amos Bartov, who is an Israeli doctor, who is a genocide expert, so-called, and they started talking about ethnic cleansing / genocide Israel is doing in the Gaza Strip, and that's after the October 7th. I was pretty overwhelmed by having this discussion, but that's the CNN. I have more to say about that point as well. In Lebanon as well, we have to make sure we have that buffer zone where no Radwan forces or any Hezbollah forces are present. That's basically the old United Nations 1701 decision, but that's not going to happen nicely. That's only going to happen by force. As far
what
as
about
I
the
see
hostage situation in Gaza?
I tend not to express my opinions about it due to the sensitivity of the families, but I'm not very optimistic.
Could you expand on that a bit?
No. There are families out there, there are people who are in terrible situations, and I really try not to talk about it. But as I said very carefully, I'm not very optimistic.
Do you think that they actually have 238 or 9 living people, or much less?
Again, I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, so how does Israel go forward? Let's say it annexes part of the Gaza Strip. Would you settle Jews there? Would you build
Let me go back.
communities?
Let me go back. It's very clear that the American administration is talking about, actually the National Security Advisor said that Gaza must not lose even 1 centimeter of its land. The Palestinians must come back to their homes, blah, 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 blah. That's not going to happen. That can't happen. And
Well, the
of course,
Americans would
two-state
like to see
solutions,
Abu Mazen.
and Abu Mazen will control. Abu Mazen doesn't control Nablus, Jenin, Tulkarem. He barely controls Ramallah, maybe Jericho.
Well,
So
Abu Mazen is in
I don't
what, the
see him
20th
control,
year of his
but-
of his 4-year term, right? I mean, they haven't held
and he's 88 years
elections
old.
in the Palestinian Authority because everyone knows that Hamas would win.
Of course, and he doesn't even control some of the how to say, groups of Fatah that originated in his own movement in Jenin and other places.
So then
Al-Aqsa
who would run Gaza? The part that Israel is not annexing.
It's a very good question. I don't think we can surrender the land that we took. I don't think they can go back. They have nowhere to go back to. And I think that at least a pretty serious part of it should not be controlled by Palestinians anymore.
Not by Palestinians.
I'm not saying we will.
Some...
I'm not saying we will be able to do it. I'm just saying that that is our true interest.
So some kind of international force? That never works for Israel.
Force? I don't believe in international force.
It's never worked for Israel.
We see what UNIFIL is doing in South Lebanon.
We saw what UNIFIL did in Gaza. We see that they raised generation after generation of terrorists.
No, that you're talking about UNRWA. You're not talking about UNIFIL. UNIFIL is the UN force in Lebanon. You got the other UN forces in the Syrian border.
So you see this war going on for at least a year, even more in the future? Do you think do you think that Israeli society is strong enough? Or are we going to start seeing protests and demonstrations, bring our boys home and stuff like that? Not about the hostages, but about the soldiers.
We already have some protests due to some political wishes of some participants in the political map of Israel. I don't think we have a choice. I think the main thing here is that, look, we got to understand, Hamas had a tremendous success invading Israel of 1948. And that's something that, yes, the Gaza border is the 1948 border. After we pulled out of Gaza in 2005, the actual border in the Gaza area is the 1948 border. And for them, it was a tremendous success. Unless we uproot them completely to the point they don't exist physically. I'm not talking about the idea, I'm talking about the people that actually done it. The Middle East will understand that they can mobilize simply more people. That's basically the Iran strategy, mobilizing people from all over the Middle East around Israel and attack it. And simply the next one is going to be tougher. That's all. So we don't have a choice.
So you're saying Israel has no choice, and we have to ignore what we'll probably see are growing demands from the United States and other countries that are now supporting us, that are not demanding a ceasefire at this point yet, but at some point it will happen, and they will not support Israel taking over Gaza or parts of Gaza.
Look, I'm not the prime minister, and there are certain things that I don't have to take into account. What I'm trying to say is that I can understand why, for example, we are getting some humanitarian aid into South Gaza, because we have some pressures and we need the United States with us. But if we understand this war as our second independence war, and this is how I see it, then I see that we simply have no choice in basically dictating what's going to happen in Gaza, in South Lebanon, in our Syrian border, and certainly in Judea and Samaria, because we can't afford being in a constant war as we are now. So we have to get into a strategic situation where we were able, and it doesn't matter what price it costs, to uproot those terror organizations, to make sure that everybody understands it in the Middle East. That's the main point. That's the main point. Because what they understand currently, and you could see it yesterday, there was an article in the Jordanian newspaper saying, okay, in Hebrew, so what's after Israel? That was the headline. And there was Erdogan who basically saying in his speech, Israel is a terror state, it's going to disappear. Wow. We have to uproot the idea of Israel disappearing from the map within few years, because this is basically what the Iranians are saying. They set a date. They said 2030 or 2040 is the end of Israel. And they're working towards that target.
So you're saying that this is not just a war for Israel's security and defense, but it is a war over the hearts and minds of the entire Middle East, the Muslim world, to tell them that we're here to stay, we're not going anywhere, and Israel is forever. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you very much, Tal Ornan.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to our viewers. Don't forget to like us on all our channels, on WhatsApp, Telegram, and YouTube. Shalom.